Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 1 English lesson on action verbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 1. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of action verbs. All right, so our chapter is action verbs. Our subject is English Language Arts, grade 1. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing on is to identify action verbs and to use action verbs. So this is a continuation of our previous lesson where we also did action verbs. So we're just going to continue and also using the action verbs within our sentence, in creating a sentence, as well as identifying verbs within our sentence. All right. So a verb, right? A verb is, it tells us what a person or animal, what a person, animal, or thing does. We can also say that a verb is a doing word. Or we can basically say that it shows action that takes place. It shows the action that either a person, or an animal, or thing does. So we can say a verb is a doing word, or we can say that it shows action, right? So once again, a verb, it tells us what a person, an animal, or thing does. And if we look at an example, right, it says the cat jumps. So if you were to ask yourself, what is the cat doing? Or if you answer what the cat is doing, then we can say the cat jumps. So only jumps, right? Not cat jumps, only jumps is our verb. And then we play, right? So play is our action that we're doing or the doing word. All right. And if we think of, I know in our previous lesson, we also made mention of things that we are doing, right? And we said that, like now, you can say that I am talking. So I can say I talk. If this was a joke that somebody's cracking, and then we laugh or laugh. Dance is also a action verb. It's a doing word. It's something that someone does. Sings. That is also something that we are doing because it's an action. So since I'm the one that is talking, you are listening. So listen or listens, right? We can even say sometimes even typing or reading, right? Those are action verbs, right? It is doing words. It tells us what the person, animal, or thing does. Even feeding, like if you were to feed your animal or your pet, that is an action that you are doing. It's a doing word, right? You are doing something because it means that you are either feeding your animal, you play with your animal, you run, because that is also a verb, right? So that is the things that you basically do. All right. So now we're going to find the verb within the sentence, right? And if we find the verb within the sentence, and then we can say, if it says Lily says her name. So we need to identify or find the verb within that sentence. It says Lily says her name. What do you think is the verb within that sentence? And if we were to find the verb within that sentence, then we can say Lily says her name. So says something that Lily does, right? What did Lily do? Lily says. So that is our verb. The puppy digs. What do you think is our verb within that sentence? It tells us what the puppy did. What did the puppy do? Or what is the puppy doing? All right, so we can say digs, right? Because that is what the puppy is doing. He digs holes. Um, I don't know what the puppy wants to find, but the puppy digs, right? Then the man walks. The man walks. What is the man doing? All right, and if we were to identify our verb that tells us what the man is doing, then we can say the man walks, right? So that is basically the verbs that we have identified within that sentence, which is Lily says her name, so says is a verb. The puppy digs, which means digs is the verb. The man walks, so which means walks is the verb. And if you look at these words over here, right, the verbs that we have identified. So if you look at these verbs that we have identified, you're going to have to try and come up with a sentence, right? So make a sentence with one of those verbs. So you're going to have to make a sentence with one of those verbs. Here we already have play, which means that play is done. So think of another sentence, or think of sentences that we can make with these words. We have read, talk, laugh, dance, sings, listens, typing, run, feed. Can you make a sentence with one of those verbs? Or type a sentence telling me what you're doing now or what you did earlier on. All right, so if we were to make a sentence, right? Let's go with sings, right? Then we can maybe say she she sings a song, right? So she sings a song, so which means that sings is our verb. If we're thinking of another sentence, let's go with talk, right? Then we can say I, okay, not love, just I talk. So we can say I talk to my friend, right? So that can be a, oh, sorry. So I talk to my friend. Can even talk on the phone. You can even chatting. You can even use the word chat because nowadays we can say chatting is a form of communication, right? You chat using your phone. You can chat using any form of social media platform, right? Especially if you have a phone. So then you can say, I chat to my friend, I talk to my friend. Or you can just say, I have a chat with my friend at school, right? So that is how we can use action verbs. I ran to the shop or I ran home. We feed the animals. So we feed the animals, right? Which means that that is also an action verb that we have identified within that sentence, right? I laugh at the movie. So these are but a few sentences where we have used the action verb, right? All right. So once again, we can say that in a verb, it tells us what a person, animal, or or a thing does, right? And like we said, it's either the action that it shows, or we can just say that a verb is a doing word. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca, and we are going to the first lesson, which is to identify action verbs. Remember, we are doing a continuation of our previous lesson. Oh, and now, sorry about this. All right, so we're going to identify action verbs, and we see the verb, it tells us what a person, animal, or thing does, right? So now we're going to find the verb within the sentences, right? It says the people hug. So the people hug. What is our verb within the sentence? The people hug. What is the verb within the sentence? The people hug. What is the action that's taking place? What are the people doing? So we need to underline the verb. All right, and if we were to identify a verb or to find the verb, we would say hug because that is what people are doing. The people hug, they're hugging each other, right? And that is our verb, that is the action, and it tells us either what the people are doing. We need to find the verb within the sentence. It says Ross eats an apple. Ross eats an apple. So Ross eats an apple. All right, and if we identify our verb, then we can say eats, because eats tells us what the Ross is doing. All right, so eats, it tells us what the Ross is doing. All right, let's go to the next one. It says the car stops. The car stops. What is the verb within that sentence? The car stops. And if we identify or find the verb, then we can say stops because that tells us what the car is doing. Stops. All right. So now we're going to our test where we're going to find or identify action verbs, right? So we're going to our test where we're going to identify action verbs. All right, it says we need to find the verb within the sentence. It says the balloon pops. The balloon pops. So what is the verb within that sentence? Is it the, is it balloon, or is it pops? So is it the balloon or is it pops? All right, and if we identify our verb, then we can say pops because that is what the balloon is doing. The balloon pops, and pops is correct. The car stops. What is the verb within that sentence? Is it the, is it car, or is it stops? The car stops. What is our verb within that sentence? All right, and if we find the verb yes, then we can say stops, right? So well done. Stops is correct. Well done. All right, let's look at the next one. It says the babies sleep. So what are the babies doing? It says the babies sleep. So if we find the verb, is it the, is it babies, or is it sleep? So the babies sleep. Is it the, is it babies, or is it sleep? We need to find the verb within that sentence. The babies sleep. All right, and if we were to find the verb, then we can say sleep. So that is correct, sleep, because it tells us what the babies are doing. So well done, sleep is correct. The children play. The children play. We need to find the verb within that sentence. The children play. We need to say what the children are doing. The children play. What are the children doing? So the children play. We need to say what the children are doing. And we will say that the play, right? So the children play. So play is the verb that tells us what the children are doing. They're playing, it's an action, something that they're doing, right? And this is the bees fly. So the bees fly. What are the bees doing? We need to identify our verb. Is it the? Is it bees? Is it fly? So the bees fly. We need to find the verb within that sentence. And fly is our verb that we had identified. All right, so now we're going to use these action verbs, right? So we have identified action verbs. So now we're going to use these action verbs within the sentence. We're going to have to read the sentence and then we're going to have to add the appropriate verb that goes with that sentence. All right, so it says we need to complete the sentence with the correct verb. And before we continue, we see that a verb, it tells us either what a person, an animal, or place is doing. Sorry, an animal, what a person, animal, or thing does, right? So a verb tells us what a person, animal, or thing does. Shows the action. It's a doing word, something that someone is doing, something that someone does. So now we're going to complete the sentence with the verb. And like I say, we can choose the appropriate verb that goes within that sentence or that matches that sentence. All right, it says the airplanes over Bella's house. So the airplanes over Bella's house. What are the airplanes doing over Bella's house? Or what do airplanes do over somebody's house? So the airplanes over Bella's house. What is the correct verb that we can use to complete the sentence? All right, so we can then say the airplanes they fly over Bella's house, right? So fly is our verb that tells us what the airplanes do. The next one says Tim and Jill, the answer. So Tim and Jill, the answer. So we can then say that Tim and Jill, they say the answer, or we can say that they know the answer, right? So it really depends. So it can either say they say the answer, or we can say that they know the answer to whatever question. Oh, and the right one is actually they guess the answer, right? But guess, say, or know are the correct possible answers that we can use within that sentence, right? It will tell us what Jill and Tim do. So either tell an answer, you guess an answer, you say the answer, or you know the answer. As long as it's a verb that matches that sentence. And then we have the last one that says she the ball with a bat. What did she do with the ball? She the ball with a bat. She the ball with a bat. All right, so we can say she hit the ball. She hit the ball because you hit a ball with your bat, right? So she hit the ball with a bat or hits. Because remember, if we say, for example, what a singular person does, and then we add an S to our verbs, she hits a ball. But hits or hit, that is basically our verb that tells us what the person does. All right, now let's go to our test where we are going to be using the action verb. So you are going to add the correct verb within that sentence. Yes, hit is correct. So well done. All right, so let's complete the sentence with the verb. It says Tim and Jill. They guess the answer, which is option one, or they happy the answer. Tim and Jill happy the answer, option two. We need to choose the correct option that tells us what Tim and Jill answers, what Tim and Jill does. So Tim and Jill, they guess the answer or they happy the answer. And if we were to choose the correct verb, right, then we will say Tim and Jill guess the answer. And guess is correct. So well done. Guess is correct. The teacher Do we say story a book or the teacher reads a book? The teacher story a book or the teacher reads a book? We need to select the correct verb to complete the sentence. So the teacher story a book or the teacher reads a book. All right, so we can say the teacher reads a book, right? Because reads is the action that tells us what the teacher do or what the teacher does. The king, right? Do we say the king look at the story or do we say the king laughs at the story? What is the correct word or the correct verb? So the king look at the story or do we say the king laughs at the story? All right, so we can say the king laughs at the story. So laughs is our verb. All right, let's do the last one. It says she home a funny noise outside her room, or do we say she hears a funny noise outside her room? So she home a funny noise outside her room, or she hears a funny noise outside her room. Which word is a verb that we need to choose that completes the sentence? So she home a funny noise outside her room or she hears a funny noise outside her room? Which one is the correct one? And if we were to choose the correct one, we will say she hears a funny noise outside her room. All right. So that is our action verbs, right? And how we use our action verbs. So we see that a verb, it basically tells us either what a person, an animal, or thing does, right? We say that the verb is in action. It tells us what somebody is doing, right? It is a doing word. And we had identified a few verbs that we can show that somebody is either doing something is either doing something, or even an animal is doing something, right? Even the whatever that you're doing now, you are doing something, right? All right. So now we're going to A plus students or A plus classes.ca. So we're going to A plus classes.ca and then we're quickly going to reading. We're going to scroll down up until we get to these four purple boxes. So not the first one, the second one. We're going to the third one that says read along audiobooks level 1. We're going to start, right? And then we are going to listen to an audio book, right? So with an audio book, somebody basically reads for you, and then that is when you'll be able to identify, or you'll be able to listen to the pronunciation of certain words, right? And then you will be able to also follow how someone reads, right? All right, so we are going to, let's go with all kinds of animals, right? So all kinds of animals.
All Kinds of Animals by Holly Hardman. I know about all kinds of animals. I know this mouse has big ears. I know this flamingo has a curved neck. I know this frog has shiny skin. I know this horse has brown hair. I know this chicken has colorful feathers. I know this snake has scaly skin. I know this goat has sharp horns. What do you know about animals?
All right. So that is basically the audiobook about all kinds of animals, and they were describing all the different kinds of animals and their skins, or basically what, let's maybe say, what makes the animals more unique, right? So whenever you want to read or you just want to listen to audiobooks, right, without actually reading, and then you can go to aplusclasses.ca. You go to reading, you scroll right down up until you get to those four purple boxes, and then you go to audiobooks level 1. And that is where you will be able to look at all of these audiobooks, and you may choose anyone that you would want to listen to or that you would want to read, right? And once again, those are audiobooks. All you just have to do is you play it, and then that is where somebody will basically read it for you. They'll be able to pick up the pronunciations of the words, and you'll also be able to identify the words based on how someone is saying it. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on action verbs. We said a verb, it tells us what the person, animal, or thing does, right? Verbs are actions that somebody does, it's a doing word, right? So that is now the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade ones, for joining the class. And I really hope that you are going to have a good day further. Goodbye.